Hey guys, wanted to share another exponential scaling dragons build and kind of go over a little bit of how the order of different start of combat things at least appear to be working. I'll be honest, some of the stuff changes patch to patch and it becomes buggy, and at least what I'm going to be sharing here as the tip is something that I've at least seen consistently through the patch. So really this strategy is kind of focusing around Emerald Dreamcatcher as a start of combat greater trinket. What Emerald Dreamcatcher does is it sets all of your dragons to have the same attack as whatever your highest attack dragon is. And this is a way that what you can do is play a bunch of pretty low attack dragons, and you can get it so they can all have the same attack. You'll know the way that we make this a lot stronger is by doing something like Persistent Poet, which makes it so whenever that attack buff happens, it applies to the minion, or that becomes like a permanent buff to the minions. And a little trick that you can do that I think I did once during this game is if you're ever about to triple a dragon, what you can do is play two of the dragons next to the poet, make it so that they both get the attack buffs, and then when you triple it, you'll end up having one unit that becomes double the attack scaling and give you an extra exponential scaling proc. But where this becomes really strong is when you combine it with Tamsin Roan's hero power. What this hero power does is you're able to kill off whatever your lowest attack health minion is at the start of your turn. And with that minion, its stats are then shared upon your dragons. This obviously becomes really strong when you do stuff like the Alliance keychains because you can guarantee what minion's going to die with it. And with that, what you can do is use a dragon that has a lot of attack but not a lot of health scaling, and use that as the way that you buff your dragons. The reason why you end up doing a high attack, low health minion is because if you have your persistent poets or your like Terragosas, your minions that are required to make the stats permanent, if they end up having the least amount of health, that those minions will die, and then you won't be able to get the permanent buff. So this is why you'll see I kind of do some weird plays in the mid game, and then I end up using Gargoyle as the dragon eventually, and I think I only went one turn because it ended up being a quick game. But Gargoyle, this is like the use case for it is with something like Tamsin Roan's hero power, where you need to make sure that you have a minion with less health than the persistent poet. The best thing about the Gargoyle too is it summons an extra body that's going to be getting the buffs, and go from there. What's really strong about this as well is as soon as you have that poet, you can start exponentially scaling your board. You'll see that we waited until I think it ended up being around turn 8 or so is when we finally got an Amber Guardian to start getting Divine Shield on our minions. But obviously the Divine Shields are very key to this build for actually winning the lobby. But you'll notice that we're able to at least have a solid board while also getting that scaling going in the mid game. So, anyways, hopefully this kind of helps show you kind of the order for how things go. What's the key thing to, I guess, understand is the Emerald Dreamcatcher will proc before your hero power, and this applies to other heroes that have similar start of combat effects. Something like Terran Gorefiend. I'm not sure if it applies for Illidan as well. Illidan sometimes is different where it actually is like always the start of combat. So that might be an exception. But at least if I remember correctly, Tamsin Roan's hero power and Terran Gorefiend's, which are the kind of two relevant ones for dragons. The other thing that I guess I want to kind of point out is something that is really the best way to utilize Tamsin Rome's hero power, and that's it's generally not the best play to have 7 minions, at least in like your early game when you're trying to guarantee that the buffs are persistent. In the late game, because you have the Emerald Dreamcatcher, it becomes a little bit better to play 7 because you can guarantee that they're going to have a lot more stats. But at least in the mid game, when you're trying to really get the keychain procs to go onto your permanent minions, it's a lot more efficient to just play 6 minions, sometimes even 5 or 4 depending on what it is. But you really want to get those early keychain procs going because those will give you more scaling in the combat itself. And because we're doing something like the Tamsin Rome hero power, the bramble witches that are generally going to be used to counter dragons aren't as effective because you're already getting those multiplicative stats spread out to your board before the combat starts. Even if you have a taunted big minion that they bramble witch, you've already gotten your big effect out of it. So, anyways, hopefully this kind of helps you guys. I think this is a really important strategy to know if you want to be winning games with the dragon trinkets. I think dragon trinkets are some of the most interesting and have some of the like strangest play. They're probably them and Quillbers probably have the most unique of trinkets, at least in my opinion. So, anyways, hopefully this helps you. Good luck in your climb. See you out there. Bye.